Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. My name is Ellie and today I'm going to be doing a book review video. So I am going to be reviewing Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. Now this is going to be quite an informal chatty review video and I'm going to try and keep it spoiler free, so don't worry if you haven't read this book before. That being said, I do want to preface this video by saying that I am going to be talking about some of the themes and the tropes in this book, and I'm also going to be giving a setup of the story. So if you're the kind of person who likes to go into a book knowing absolutely nothing, then I would probably recommend clicking off this video and perhaps coming back once you've read the story for yourself if you're interested to hear my thoughts. But don't worry, I'm not going to be talking about any major spoilers or any major plot points in this video. Okay, so now that disclaimer is out of the way, what is this book actually about? So this is an adult fantasy book and it's the first in a duology that's based on Chinese mythology. So our author Su Lin Tan took a lot of inspiration from the myth of the moon goddess Chang'e and her husband, the famous archer Hon Yi, and it's definitely inspired by that story. It's not a direct retelling because our author takes a spin on the story. So she thinks, what would happen if the moon goddess actually had a daughter, hence the title of this book. So in this world, the moon goddess has actually been exiled to the moon for stealing the celestial emperor's elixir of immortality. Now when she was exiled, she was actually pregnant at the time, but she kept that hidden from everyone around her, and she decides to have her daughter in secret because she knows that if the celestial emperor knows that she has a daughter, then her daughter will be subject to punishment for her crimes. So she has her daughter Xingyin in secret, and they both live a very kind of isolated life on the moon together. It's literally just the two of them and I think one attendant, and while it's quite an isolated existence, Xingyin, the daughter of the moon goddess, is very content. She has a lovely relationship with her mother. She's very comfortable and happy living on the moon, but everything changes when one day she accidentally flares her magic and that causes her existence to become noticed. And so the celestial emperor comes to the moon to investigate, and Xingyin, the daughter of the moon goddess, is forced to flee her home on the moon and to leave her mother behind for her own safety. And just before she leaves, she makes a promise to her mother that one day she will find a way to come back to the moon and to save her from her imprisonment on the moon. So that is very much the driving force and the motivation of our character and the main overarching plot for the book. So Xingyin, the daughter of the moon goddess, ends up fleeing and she goes to the realm where the immortals live. So it's not the mortal realm, it's kind of this realm that's up in the clouds, which is very cool. And she has to keep her heritage a secret, and she has to really try and establish herself in this new society. And yeah, I think the thing that I really loved about this story right from the beginning was absolutely the writing style, because Su Lin Tan has this really gorgeous lyrical poetic writing style that's so captivating but also isn't difficult to understand. Like, it's easy to follow, it's not too intimidating, and I just thought it was such a beautiful writing style, and it was absolutely perfect for this type of story, which is like a myth kind of retelling, because it felt quite whimsical and magical. And there were such gorgeous descriptions of the world and the setting of this kind of city that's kind of up in the clouds, and we had lots of mythological creatures in here as well. We have dragons and things which are really cool, and Su Lin Tan also does a fantastic job of describing some of the little details. So she goes into descriptions of the ornate clothing that some of the characters wear and the food that they eat, and it just creates this really vivid setting that is just so wonderful and was just really absorbing, and I loved being in this world. I also feel like, although this book is an adult fantasy book, I do think that it would appeal to younger readers, and I think that if you're a typical YA reader, I do think that you would enjoy this story, and I think that's in part because of the writing and the fact that it is quite easy to follow along with, but also because of some of the plot lines and some of the themes in this book. Because while the overarching plot of this story is about Xingyin trying to find a way to free her mother, it's also very much about Xingyin having to establish herself in this new society. She's having to learn new skills and everything, and so it's very much a coming of age story, and I feel like you often get those types of stories in YA books. And there is also quite a big romantic subplot in this story as well, which I also feel like is something that you often see in YA stories. And there is actually a love triangle in here. Now I know not everybody loves love triangles, myself included. I personally feel that love triangles are often put in a story just to create drama drama, and it's normally really obvious which person our main character is going to end up with, and it just feels like a little bit of a waste of time. But this story I think is a fantastic example of how to do a love triangle well, because both of our love interests were very distinct characters, and they were both really important for the plot aside from the romance as well as because of the romance. And yeah, I found myself really unsure which person our main character was going to end up with. I kept flip-flopping between the two. They were both quite different relationships, and they both offered Xingyin something different, and they both brought out different sides to Xingyin, so it was really difficult to know who she was actually going to end up with, and I thought that's a really good way to tell that a love triangle is done well. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed the romantic elements in here. I will say, while the romance is quite a big subplot in this story, I wouldn't describe this book as a fantasy romance, because it's definitely not the main focus of this story. So don't go into this book expecting a fantasy romance, because you probably will be disappointed. But if you do like a little bit of romance in your stories, then I think that you will really enjoy this one. And yeah, I think one thing that I really found quite fascinating about this story is our character and her growth throughout the story, and the exploration of her forming different relationships with people in here, because of course she had a very isolated and solitary life living on the moon before, you know, she had to flee. And so I felt that she was really desperate to form connections, and she was quite naive to the ways of the world in the beginning of the book, and she really has to learn those lessons for herself. And I thought that it was really fascinating following that journey along with her. And yeah, I really enjoyed the different types of relationships that she formed, because of course she's experiencing things like romance and love for the first time, so we get that very whirlwind first love type romance in this story that I thought was really excellently done. But then we also have some slower friendships and some slower sort of romantic plot lines in here as well, and I just thought it was done really well. And I really enjoyed the character arc in here, and seeing Xingyin grow from this kind of naive, uncertain person to really finding herself and finding her strength. And she very much has to form her own moral compass as well, and decide at what lengths is she willing to go to in order to achieve her end goal. So I really enjoyed our main character and the character arc that she goes through in this story, and that was definitely one of the things that I enjoyed most about this book. Now, one criticism that I've seen quite a lot of people saying about this book is that it's quite slow paced. Now, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, because I actually thought that this plot was really engaging and that it was actually quite fast paced. So I'm not sure sort of why some people feel like that. I think it might be because the plot is quite meandering. So while we have this overarching plot of Xingyin trying to find a way to free her mother, she does have to go on quite a lot of side quests, and she has to really establish herself in society and form connections and learn new skills so that she can be in a good position to try and pursue her end goal, if that makes sense. So the plot is quite meandering, so that might be why some people find this to be fairly slow. Now, this book is actually in different sections, and there is quite a time jump between the different sections. So this book takes place over a really long period of time, bearing in mind that our main character is actually an immortal, so time passes slightly differently for her. So yeah, we do get these jumps of time, and we do get sections of the book that are following slightly different plot lines. So yeah, if you're not a fan of a sort of meandering plot line, maybe you wouldn't get on with this one. But I personally felt like it was quite fast paced and that things were pushing forwards quite quickly, and if anything I would have preferred it to slow down a little bit more, because some of the time we do miss some of Xingyin forming friendships and forming connections and building her skills, because those bits happen off page. So yeah, if anything I would prefer it to be a little bit slower, but that's just my personal opinion. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts actually, and whether or not you found this book to be fast-paced, or if you thought it was too slow. But yeah, that's kind of my rambly thoughts on this book really. I hope that I made some sort of sense. I feel like it was a little bit all over the place, but my kind of round out views of this book really are that it's beautifully written, a gorgeous setting. I really enjoyed our main character and her growth throughout about the story. I actually enjoyed the love triangle element in here, surprisingly, and while some of the plot lines in this book felt quite familiar, I was surprised by some of the things that happened at the end. There were some twists and turns that I didn't see coming, so I thought that was really entertaining, and I would highly recommend this book if you're a YA reader and you're looking to transition into adult, because I think this is the perfect book to do that, because it has those familiar themes and tropes that you might enjoy in your YA stories, but it is obviously an adult book. So yes, that's my thoughts on Daughter of the Moon Goddess. I'm very pleased to say that this lived up to my expectations, because it was actually one of my most anticipated reads for the year, and it is equally beautiful in my opinion inside as outside with this gorgeous cover. So yes, I'm thrilled with this story. I immediately went and bought the sequel, so I'm very much looking forward to picking that one up when it is published. Anyway, that's it from me for today. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like if you liked it. That really does help out my channel, and consider subscribing if you want to see more from me. Anyway, I will leave you to enjoy the rest of the day, whatever it is that you are doing, and I guess I'll see you next time with another video. Bye!